Please leave a message after the tone.
You got several questions due. Your life is going down the tubes. What do you do when you need advice?
This is where it gets good. Good night.
What am I fighting for?
So turn down the lights, pick up the phone and leave a message for the new
After Dark. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another wonderful episode of Nude Clan After Dark. I am your host, Caleb.
Also Caleb.
And Cameron.
And it looks like we have two messages. So hopefully...
Two messages?
Are these
Yeah.
the two messages we left from last time, or are they new?
They're from last week, yeah.
Uh-oh, it means we need calls, people.
Yeah,
Come on.
385-204-3921. Give us your questions. We'll give you advice. Or just answers. I don't know. Sometimes it's not really advice. Yeah. We're going to be out after this episode, so we need you guys to hit us up, or we'll just, go on a slightly racist tirade, I guess. Instead. Let's see what we've got, though.
Family price of only
God fucking damn it.
$999.
Nice.
Only
For further details, press 1
$999.
now. To be placed on the do not call list, press 2 now.
Well, that's fun. That's one of them. I mean, this next one came 5 days later, so... Oh, and it's a repeat, so we shouldn't have the robot. Unless it is the robot that just keeps on keeping on. Well, let's find out.
Hey, New Clan. I was this is Jared from Arizona. It was 102 today. Pretty nice day, But I was in my my little backwoods town a couple days ago, and my parents visited my parents, of course, and my neighbor came up, and what do old people like to do in a retirement community? Pretty much, not really retirement, but like a retirement town. They like to talk politics, and of course, the subject of gun control came up. And I'm not going to get too political, but this guy says if the military has it, he should be able to have it. And he says he wants a tank. What's your guys' opinions on this? Because I think he's absurd and crazy for wanting a tank. Because I'm just like, who would want a tank? I mean, it'd be cool. Don't get me wrong. It'd be fucking awesome.
I was going to say,
but
who doesn't want
I don't
a
see any
fucking tank?
practicality to having a tank. All right, guys, keep it up. We'll listen to you guys soon, all right?
Right,
See, someone doesn't get a
obviously-
tank for it to be practical. It's not like, hey, I'm gonna zip on by the grocery store.
Dude, there's a practicality to having for an old man to have a tank to keep them children's off his lawn. All right, he's got he has a right to defend his home with his tank and his lawn from the children's and the sidewalks from the skateboards.
I mean, even from an HOA standpoint, when someone's out front just washing their beautiful tank, I mean, house values just skyrocket.
Exactly, yeah. I think that's nothing but positive, nothing but plus.
yeah.
You just slap a hybrid sticker on the back, no one knows the difference.
Yeah. It's like, hey, I converted it to natural gas. Like, don't judge. Get a.
My tank partially runs off electricity.
Yeah.
It's a Tesla.
You have to get a fucking. It's not Tesla. What are the other ones that are really, really quiet that are like full electric?
So, is there a certain manufacturer you're looking for?
No, it's just the type of car. It's the shit.
You mean electric, a hybrid?
I think it's pure electric.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
It's
I
the
know-
most popular.
Pure
I think I know
electrics
what
are the
you're talking
quietest.
about, but I can't remember what they're
The
called.
most popular hybrid or electric car.
A Tesla is probably one of the more known brands.
No,
but-
not that. It's like a mainstream
Hold on.
vehicle.
Hey Alexa, what's the most popular electric car? No, well, I guess she doesn't know.
Popular choice for electric
Here.
car on Amazon is Best Choice Products Kids 6 volts ride on
Oh,
treadmill.
No.
well, okay, never mind. She doesn't know.
No,
She's
she's just
just-
Alexa
Amazon.
doesn't know shit.
searching Amazon.
shill.
Like, throw a mic up there. And Alexa can be our fourth host.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
It's a yeah. Fuck. I don't know why I can't think of the.
Well, it's electric cars are all super quiet, but is there like a?
Yeah, it's like I think it's.
I'm having trouble understanding.
It's not the Leaf, but it's like
We don't need you anymore.
so rude.
Stop interrupting, Alexa.
Yeah, it's not a Leaf. It's the. I think it's Ford though. It's Ford's.
Are you thinking about the
Hybrid.
Ford that grew plants on the dash? The more economically you drove it, or
No.
Okay, hold on.
That's probably just Ford fucking up and like, oh shit, we had seeds in the.
no, it's not an actual plant. It's just a little plant on your dash, like a console, and the more
What is
fuel.
that car?
It's like the Ford's. It's not a Ford Focus, is it? Ford Focus Hybrid.
No.
Oh well, it doesn't matter.
It's the Nissan Leaf,
No.
Chevrolet Bolt.
There's also a Prius,
That's the one, Prius.
but Prius is not a Ford.
Well, whatever. Prius is the one I'm thinking of. Like,
Okay,
you get a
it's a
Prius.
Toyota.
Priuses aren't full.
Yeah, it is
electric, are they?
Toyota. No.
No, they're hybrids.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So it's a Prius tank, so it's really quiet. That's what I was trying to make. The
so-
joke I was trying to make, but then it took 10 minutes to figure out.
God, it fell flat. But private civilians in America can purchase tanks. They just can't shoot. An organization can buy a tank that has ability to fire real rounds. You just have to have a permit for it. But nothing's stopping you from purchasing a tank. You just can't actually do what tanks do.
You can't economically afford it either.
Well, who knows what this
Exactly.
guy's doing in his retirement?
Yeah, I mean,
And no one, again, buys a tank to be practical. But I think he wanted us to dive a little more into the topic of the Second Amendment with, are we allowed to have the same weaponry as the military? Do you think that's stupid? Do you think people are interpreting that wrong?
well, it's kind of a touchy
It is a very touchy subject.
subject because, I mean, on one hand, you have the idea that the Second Amendment is. So there are two kind of lines of thought for the Second Amendment, right? There's one that it's implying that it's civilians, so us, Cameron and I, have the right to bear arms, and we have the right to have firearms and weaponry, which would imply that we have the right to have a tank, right? Because
Well,
that's a firearm, that's weaponry, that's...
so if we wanted to actually pull, I don't know if we actually want to dissect what the Second Amendment actually says. But
No, fuck it. Let's pull it up.
But people argue that in that day and age, the weaponry back then wasn't, mind-boggling with the power it had. But it's also, people interpret it as it was the state's rights to have a standing militia, not having, everyone in
Yeah.
the state armed.
And so here's the full Amendment number 2 to the Constitution of the United States, right? A well-regarded militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, I read that as it's the state's right to have a state militia that doesn't answer to the federal government in times of tyranny. So the state can have tanks, and the state does. Especially if you live in New York, they've got light armored vehicles that just roll down the street sometimes.
Well, same here, down
Yeah.
the freeway all the time.
Well, yeah, on the freeway. I'm talking Main
The
Street.
Springville Armory emptied out the other day when I was there. They had a fucking parade of just fucking
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always fun.
I
And
believe
it was also fun seeing that big old. This was like a year ago, just seeing the train going through. I think it was just south of Salt Lake City, but it just had open bed after open bed of just Abrams tanks on it. Just pulling through.
So I believe that means to me, and I think this is what it's supposed to mean, is that the state has their own well-regarded militia because a private militia is illegal in the United States. It's
Is a
against
private
the
militia illegal?
Constitution. Yeah, it is. That's why Joseph Smith was in serious shit because he had a private militia. That's why they shut
But then
his
what
ass
about
down.
what about private militaries?
Those aren't really allowed either. They're not supposed to be. Now, the federal government can choose or not choose to obey or not worry about these laws because marijuana is federally illegal, but you don't see the federal government going into Colorado shutting it down because they don't care. So a private militia is not allowed. So that implies that the state militia or the National Guard for Utah or wherever you live has those rights, and that can't be infringed, which also militia is a voluntary service, right? So that does imply that you as a person also can bear arms, right?
Right. So how does that spill over to the average citizen, and then, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think it means you can have guns. Like, I don't know if it necessarily means you can have tanks.
So it looks like, as far as private militias go, that the states themselves can have laws regulating private militias. These laws prohibit the parading and exercising of armed private militias in public, but do not forbid the formation of private militias.
That's what it is. Yeah, you can't make a public display.
But in Wyoming, that forbids the formation of private militias. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe it was just here.
So
So the militia, though, the well-regulated militia, to me, does speak of National Guard. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like that's what it is. Although I don't think you shouldn't have the right to have a firearm. I think that's a ridiculous idea. That's a fascist thing. And whenever I see anybody talking about rounding up all the guns and melting them down, I think of the horrors of the early 20th century, and I think that's not going to happen. And then they also, the problem with that is those people argue, well, what are you going to do? Take the government down? They've got jets. And it's like, well, I'm not going to not try. Like, I'm not willing to lay down everything that everything that I stand for just because, I can't possibly win. Like, have you never, like, enjoyed a hero's journey tale? Like, do you not enjoy watching the Ewoks destroy the fucking the Empire? Because that's what that story is. They're massively underpowered, and they still come through.
I mean,
it's because you tried.
We could probably devolve this into
stormtroopers also can't hit
guerrilla
for shit,
warfare.
so-
The American government versus its citizens, and see what that would turn into. I
Yeah.
mean, that could be an interesting story, but
like,
that's what it would devolve into. Is people who want to fight will probably just take to the
Didn't
woods
they
or the
have a
mountains.
movie like
and
that?
You might be thinking of Red Dawn,
That's the one.
but that's where Russia takes over.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, is like there's a group of people that think it means we get the rights to all the guns ever, and there's a group of people that think we have the right to bear arms, like in a reasonable sense, or it's just a militia, which to me it sounds like it's mostly just a militia, but a militia is, it's like a citizen thing. Like, you're a citizen and you join the National Guard. That's kind of how it is. It's like a civilian-powered entity, right? So it's kind of hard to really define.
How much firepower does a citizen have the right to own? And the Second Amendment clearly states it's up to each state individually to decide that. And so, doesn't it say that right there?
Yeah, well, as being necessary to the free security of a free state shall not be infringed. It doesn't say up to the state. It's just implying that to have a free state, you have to have the ability to protect yourself.
So whether or not you feel, I don't know. This is a can of worms we can open up if we wanted to. I mean, it's not like we haven't stated our political views too much discussed before, but
yeah, no, and it's, I don't think it really gives you the right to, like, every weapon ever.
I don't think so either.
But I don't think it implicitly doesn't as well. I mean, that's just,
well, that's where a lot of this comes from, is the ambiguity in the law itself. And
I mean,
do we need to
restrictions are
redefine
fine.
what the law is?
Restrictions are
And there's
fine.
going to be people mad either way. It's regular, if it's regular or not. There's certain states. So, I mean, there's so much we could get into. I guess I personally feel that it's all right for private citizens to own small arms. I do feel that regulating it better is a necessity. There is one state, I can't remember what it is, but they have basically a license program that's outside of a concealed carry permit. It's just a license to own a weapon, and it's every 5 years you have to have the license renewed and basically evaluate. If you have any new things happen on your background check, or if you're not in a mentally acceptable state to own a firearm. I don't know if I want to go that drastic, or if I do want to go that drastic, just because people change over time, and there are definitely people in this world that I know that I would never want them to ever have a gun, ever. It's their right as an American citizen to have a gun, but knowing that individual, I would never want them to have a gun.
Having a license and then having them, like, if every 5 years they took, like, a psych test, I guess it wouldn't be too bad.
In Utah, especially, it's very easy to obtain a firearm through a private sale, and private sales are unregulated at all. There's no background checks.
You don't have to track any of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like in Florida, they have like gun shows where people don't even have
Same
to
here in Utah.
do anything about it.
Utah has gun show policy too,
private
where
selling.
It's just you can go to a gun show and it's all just you buy it right there.
Yeah,
it's private sales. You don't have to do any background checks, nothing. You just grab a gun.
Yep.
And I mean, honestly, I think everyone should be allowed to have. I don't think you should have any restrictions on that, because I don't like the idea of the.
I think everyone should own some dueling pistols, and and we should all resolve all issues.
Yeah, with a duel down on Main Street.
But do you not know people who you'd rather them never have a gun?
I do, but I don't think we should have a government entity deciding that. Because when we
then who decides that?
They make the rules. I say no one does. No one decides that.
Then how do you
don't
prevent
worry about
that person who shouldn't have a gun to have a gun?
We don't. There's no preventing it. If you want something bad enough, you're going to get it. But
then what if that person who has a gun causes something that could have been prevented without that option?
Well, we say it could have been prevented, but we don't know. There's no way to know that.
I feel
There's
like
no way
if
to
someone
tell,
is going,
unless everyone follows the rules to a T, and that's never going to happen.
I don't feel like if guns are taken away that the problem of mass shootings will go away. It just won't.
Yeah, it won't.
Or mass killings won't go away. If a person is downright set on killing people, the easiest thing to do is hop into a car and drive into a crowd of people, and that does happen.
Yeah.
But I feel like having something like a gun makes it easier for a person to then make that decision to go to go shoot people.
It does, but I feel like the media glorifies it in a really bad way, because human violent acts have decreased drastically over the last 50 years.
I agree.
The problem is that we have the media that likes to conflate these things. It's basically becoming clickbait.
No, that's all the media is these days. I mean, I've ranted about it before. We live in an extremist culture right now fueled by the media that they want to get people mad and divided because that gets more clicks.
And I've been listening to a lot of shows talking about this, and one of the biggest things that I totally think is happening is it's becoming a dying media. It's dying because no one cares about the news, because the news is so bullshit, right? And there are so many better ways to get true, honest, non-conforming opinions through the podcast, which is probably one of the biggest.
Yeah, it's just a form
shifts.
of free-thinking people, but then you're still going to have people who try to manipulate the point of view too. I mean,
no, I know,
and
that's why the media. That's why the media is becoming more and more biased, because they have to resort to that to garner any sort of attention. So the idea, I mean, we look at stats. A couple of years ago, I think it was 40,000 gun deaths, right?
Yeah.
Half of those were suicides.
And then that's another point I want to bring up.
But no one talks about the
suicide.
fact that half of it is suicide. And
people who are going through a hard time and who are thinking suicidally, having a gun is just the presence of a firearm or a weapon that's makes it super easy and quick to end a life.
Cam.
Opens that option.
Don't you know that suicide is illegal?
Or they'll put you on the chair for that.
Dude, suicide is illegal. You can't commit suicide, all right?
And then that's also another reason for I think that that influences that the male suicide rate's higher than the female suicide rate. It's just males tend to have methods that are more effective. And
oh yeah, did you read about that guy who made a suicide helmet?
No, I have not heard about that.
Really? Oh man! So this guy made like a fucking suicide helmet where he like put a bunch of fucking shotgun shells that were like aimed directly at his head on this fucking helmet thing, and he just like had to light something on there, and then all of them would go off at once, just blow his brains in.
Huh.
Yeah.
I kind of want to know the reason why he decided that was his way out, because it sounds like he has some ingenuity that could have been used elsewhere.
I don't know, but it was really effective.
Well, of course it was effective. But then men, I don't know. I'd have to actually get the statistic on this, but what sex owns the majority of the guns. But having an easy option, I feel, helps people make these decisions, such as suicide, or such as if it is a person who is willing to go kill people, having a weapon designed to do so makes it easier for them. I don't want to get rid of guns at all. Not at all. I mean, I have one on the way, so.
Yeah. Oh, I think most of the people that argue this, I mean, in 2017, almost 60% of gun deaths were suicides.
Yeah.
There's no reason to bring any sort of legislation forward when 60% of the problem is suicide. You're addressing a result of something, not the actual cause.
Right,
the cause of them committing suicide.
It's a symptom, not the actual cause.
Yeah, we're not treating a symptom. We're treating a side effect.
That's actually something that I do want to bring up, especially on this show. But when you have someone who is who's depressed or suicidal or does have a criminal background, do you feel like it's still their right to own a firearm?
I would say criminal background, not as much. Depending on what it is. If it's a violent crime, then no. If they have mental problems, then yeah, I do think they should be allowed to, because we can't simply say
when a person commits a crime and they do have a mental deficiency or they do have another mental problem, that's actually something that's taken into account during the proceedings, of the court afterwards.
Right, but those people,
if they're claimed that they're mentally deficient, then their treatment's different.
Right, but those people have committed a crime. I don't like the idea of someone who might have mild bipolar disorder not being able to own a firearm. If you haven't, I say we're innocent until proven guilty, and if you haven't committed a crime, you shouldn't be prevented from doing something. So yeah, there's a whole array of mental problems that exist.
What about someone
that have
who has
nothing to
been,
do with violence?
What about someone who's been previously committed into a mental institution or has been committed because of suicide attempts and within, let's say, the last 5 years?
I would say it's not the government's responsibility to keep those people alive. I know that's a really harsh thing. It's not, and if you want to kill yourself, there's 1,000 ways to kill yourself. Are we going to stop selling aspirin in bottles in quantities larger than 12?
Like, there's no way to not kill yourself.
Razor blades,
or razor blades, anything that's too sharp. I get it. The gun is easier to kill yourself
on
with.
This. Slitting your wrist is probably one of the more painful ways to die.
Yeah, but but the gun it might be faster.
It's faster and easier.
But that doesn't.
But of course, it's not the. I mean, it's.
And there's no coming back.
Not the only way. Yeah.
Most of the time.
Well, it
Unless
depends.
You shoot
I mean,
yourself
sometimes
in the jaw like a fucking
you
moron.
can mess up because the brain's a funny thing, and you can sometimes shoot yourself in the head but still live. But then live.
How bad would that be?
That'd be
you
horrible.
can't. It's like I can't even
Man.
I can't even kill myself. Like how. If I'm super depressed and I try to kill myself and I fail, it's like.
I mean, again.
Fuck. Really? I can't even die, right? Like, God damn it.
And then this is another thing I actually wanted to bring up on the show. Mental health and the sciences behind that. It's still called the soft science, just because it's hard to quantify kind of our social interactions and just the human brain itself. It's a soft science because compared to math and physics and stuff, you can measure it, and the results are going to be the same.
Yeah.
When it comes to how we think and operate, you can base a theory off of what you've seen before and how people act, but there's always going to be something that lies outside of the norm.
Right. We just don't understand our brains.
And in America, and I feel like in a lot of countries, that people tend to look down on mental health and reaching out to medical professionals in that field just because there's a stigma there's a stigma attached to it. That's the correct word. it's just almost taboo to say that you want to go talk to a therapist, a psychiatrist.
Right, yeah.
And especially for males, too. For men to get mental health, it's just like we sometimes are too prideful to want to reach out for that help, and we're sometimes it's just seen as like an unmanly thing to go
Right,
do.
yeah.
But, I mean, we started this After Dark as a way to just talk to our listeners and have funny questions and laugh at it, but a lot of times they ask us some actual real questions.
Right, yeah.
And the majority of our listenership, of course, are going to be males. And I just wanted, people to know that it's not unmanly to go get help when you need help.
Yeah, it's really not, and I mean it's tough because with this debate, this discussion about what is okay to own, always comes down to the same thing. Even with us just now, like it came down to the mass shootings and all of these things that are being hyper
focused on
in the media. But then we have
and then we have
you look in 2017, 70,000 people died from drug overdoses.
Another point.
That's way more than gun violence. Why aren't we focusing on that? And the reason why is because people don't care about lives. They care about getting rid of guns. They care about the scariness that is someone dying from a gun. But if you really cared about overall lives, human lives that are just, you can't comprehend the value of a life, you would think, let's try to save more people. Let's try to save as many people as we can. That's the whole idea behind like governmental systems, is the best possible outcome for the most people. And we're not focusing on that. They're focusing on the flashy gun deaths, which 60% of are suicides. And that, I think that doesn't even fucking count.
Right.
If 60% of them are suicides and another, I don't know how many, but a lot of them are like criminals killing criminals, those ones I write off because those don't count.
I mean, the gang violence and stuff is never publicized
No,
to the same extent.
it's not, yeah.
But,
and it should be. But it also shouldn't, because nobody cares. Because if you're a piece of shit gangbanger that gets killed by another piece of shit gangbanger, the only downside is that both of you didn't die. And that's a result of, and admittedly that is, it's a deeper issue, and it comes down to like upbringing and all these things. But that is what they've become, and they are asking for it by doing the fucking criminal activity that they do. It's not that I think we should not try to reform those communities that are producing a lot of these individuals. That's different. But once you go down that rabbit hole and you've accepted that as your life, then I think your life is going to be on the line. And if they die in a fucking firefight over turf or whatever,
there was a firefight,
then I don't fucking count that either.
Movie.
I don't count that either, because that's them being fucking retarded.
Another side effect of the media, and this is something that they've seen trends for throughout the years. But back in the day, when something happened that was noteworthy, that would make it into mainstream media news, there would be copycat incidents that would follow up with it. Suicides sometimes come in waves, and suicide sometimes comes in waves in families too, to where if a suicide happens and people are seeing the statistics of it, sometimes it's more likely that rate will go up. And same thing with copycat incidents, where a serial bomber or a serial murderer will do some things and gain some notoriety. Then you have rise of copycats happening, and that's could also be a side effect of these shooting events, where when this gets such a mass media coverage and they have an idea that they want to get out there, and the best way is to go make a huge statement by killing tons of people, and they see that happening on the media and it's getting so much attention, that someone else who feels like they want to do that might be more incentivized to go do that.
Right. I wouldn't blame the media for that necessarily.
No, it's just human nature.
But it's just someone that's unhinged that sees that and is like, wow, I could really make a name for myself if I did that. And then they repeat it. And you're right, there are a lot of repeats, and there are a lot of, like, when the Zodiac Killer thing was big, when he was out and about, people were calling in, like, claiming to be the Zodiac Killer. There were all sorts of, like, copycats, and, like, people, they'd have to dive really deep into these cases to find out, well, was this actually the Zodiac, or was this someone that was copying the Zodiac? And there were multiple incidences where they don't know if it was him or not, or they actually think that it was a copycat. So, yeah, you're right. It does kind of, like, glorify it in a way. And it's, I don't know. I feel like, thankfully, we're going to be seeing the end of that shit soon, because I do legitimately believe that the big news companies are going to fall and they're going to fail because they can't. Because people are realizing that it's just all it is flashy, almost borderline nihilistic approaches to
our
life.
Generation is going to be the most disenfranchised and the most willing to just not go to major media outlets for their news.
Well, yeah, because
but it's the boomer generation before
it.
us still like they hang on.
Right, but they're going to die eventually, and they didn't have enough kids to really replenish. I mean, first of all, when they all retire, we're kind of fucked. Because, I can't remember what the stat is, but, a very large percentage of the workplace could retire in, the next year. A substantial chunk.
A good example of something that's happening like that is in Japan, where they just don't have the same population to replace the dying population.
Right, and there's a ton of reasons behind that.
Yeah. And then, we might see the similar effect of that, too, within the next 10 years or so, 15 years.
Yeah, thankfully we got robots take up jobs. Because we don't have people. We don't have enough fucking people to fucking fill
Maybe
the holes.
another conversation is life after work, the true utopia.
Yeah, just robots, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's I think everyone should be able to own it. And I don't like the idea of putting those restrictions. Because, if you have minor depression problems and we say, oh, well, no, you're not allowed to have a gun. It's well, I've never had a suicidal thought in my life. I just get kind of sad sometimes. Well, no, it doesn't matter. You can't have that. And I think when we start doing that, we start losing what we are. We start giving into that fear that something they could possibly do something someday, maybe under certain circumstances. Then you can't have that. I hate that idea. I hate the idea that the post office has an anthrax checking machine. And we went through a drill yesterday. They're so proud of the fact that it's never had an alarm, false or proven, since they put it in, and it's what a waste. We had the anthrax attacks in 2001. They put the system in 2002, and they come around and they give us our little drill, and they're like, we've never had a false alarm or a regular alarm in 16, 17 years now. And I'm like, wow, your job is useless. You go around and help people with these anthrax drills, and you literally do nothing for anyone ever because it was a reactive thing to a fucking cowardly attack, and now that's just become part of our lives. And I think that's fucking weak. I think that gives in. I think that gives into the ideologies that caused those attacks. That shows that we can fear that. And I think the same thing happens with the TSA. When we get our fucking belts, I have to take off my fucking belts, take my keys out, take my ring off, bullshit. I can't have a certain amount of toothpaste, just because of one huge thing happened from an extremely radical group, and it killed thousands of Americans.
It is,
and now we fucking bow down to that.
It is a little bit of a security theater for sure.
Yeah, it makes us look fucking weak, and the whole idea is to make us look weak. That's why they attacked us.
The whole idea is to make it so you don't feel safe
succeeded
going about your normal everyday life.
Yeah, but if you don't feel safe, then just stay home.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what they want. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we should have to have all these huge restrictions.
Every time there's a festival or
that wastes thousands of fucking hours of manpower.
Every time
nothing.
there's a festival going on, just anywhere, just a large gathering of individuals, people are now always have that in the back of their mind. Is that being
right?
a
But that's
possibility?
because we've conflated it. We've made it seem like it's such a regularity when it's not.
Well, just recently there were 2 shootings in the same day, 2 mass shootings.
Yeah, I know.
Well, remember when they had that shooting here in Utah with that one guy, or what was it here in Utah with the
Trolley
one guy,
Square
at the movie theaters, after the Dark Knight.
I can't remember if that was in Utah or not.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But anyway, after that, a shitload of people stopped going to the movies for a little while because they were afraid that somebody's gonna fucking come shoot them.
Yeah, and I mean,
the same idea. It's because the media blew the shit out of it.
And it's not that that's not a big deal. It's just that you're allowing an event that is very, the probability of that happening is extremely low.
Oh yeah, that
you're
was
allowing
like
that to
nearly an isolated event.
You're allowing that to mold your existence around it, and you're saying, "Oh well, now I need to take account for that." And I don't think that's no way to live. You shouldn't be concerned about those things at all times, or else it's going to destroy you. You're gonna be unmanned. You're gonna lose your ability to go about everyday life and just exist. And it's not that that's something that is happening, because it is, and Cameron's right. The two of them happened in the same day, right?
And it could be because of any number of reasons.
Coincidence,
people feeling inspired to go do it because of the media coverage it gets.
Yeah, there's 1,000 different things. All I'm saying is don't
people
live in
want
fear.
to be famous and they're ridiculous.
Don't live in fear because of something that happens in a very, very small
I think,
rate.
Yeah,
it's the idea that, like, I see this on Twitter a lot, where like the kids, someone will say that their kid came to them and like asked them if they need to be, worried about being shot at school. And they're like, "This is a sad world we live in," and I'm like, "It's a sad world where your fucking kid thinks that that's something that just happens regularly enough that they should actually be concerned about it." I'm not going to wear fucking armor, Kevlar, just because sometimes some people get shot. And I think most people go around during their day without Kevlar on. Why? Well, because it's not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. So, like, the idea that, yeah, it's sad that a kid would say that, but the problem is it's sad that the kid even thinks to say that. That's the problem. It's not the problem of, like, they're closer to God or they're closer to reality, and they can make these claims and it means more. It's that we're making that something that they think about every day. That's the problem.
Yeah, like when Columbine
fucking
happened,
stupid.
we never went to school and were like, "Oh, I'm afraid of getting shot." Like that was never.
Yeah,
a thing.
but the frequency, you have to agree, has increased.
It seems like it has increased. I haven't looked at the numbers. I would assume it has, because the shitty news outlets have been dying for a while now. So I would assume it has increased. I don't actually know.
No, it definitely has.
But still though, like that's the conversation though. Is should we live in fear of these things because they do happen on occasion, or should we be ready to protect ourselves when something like this possibly comes up? And if we start regulating, if we start saying, "Oh, well, you are slightly depressed, you can't have a gun." What if I was what if I was in the military and I'm slightly depressed because I saw my buddy fucking explode right next to me and I had to wipe his chunks off of me? But if I had a gun in a situation like that, I could stop it. But I can't now because the government said I have a mental illness and I'm not fit to have a firearm, so I die like everybody else.
I wasn't going to bring up this point either, but the idea of being able to carry a concealed weapon and be able to use it in a shooting incident to protect people, oftentimes the person who has a concealed weapon is also a danger to standers-by just as much as the shooter is. Because a lot of people, when they go shooting at the range, they might be decent at a shooting range, but have no experience or idea how it is to shoot at an actual active shooter incident, where their adrenaline's pumping, people are running all around, and now they have to be accurate on a moving target who's shooting back. I mean, normal people aren't trained for that kind of thing. I'm not saying that people can't conceal carry. It's just you have to have that in mind, that an individual who's concealed carrying, yes, they have a weapon, but are they trained to use it in the situation that they're in?
Well, really what it comes down to for me is, when you're in a situation like that, you could very easily die. Do you want to die not having a chance to survive, or do you want to die having a chance to survive?
I'd like to think that personally, if I was in that situation and I was in a position to where I could actually do something about it, that I would want to do something about it, with or without a gun.
Exactly, with or without a gun. So I feel like the better chance you have to defend yourself and stay alive, the better chance everyone else around you has.
I know how. So I have not. So I haven't owned a gun before, and I go shooting every so often. I'm not, really accurate at this point. But for me, but I know how to tackle someone. I know how to throw someone around because I've done that and, practice doing that through school and sports and stuff. And that's something I would feel comfortable with doing. And if I saw an opportunity to do so without getting shot in the process, I'd probably take it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I say now without being in the situation. Who knows how you'll react until...
Yeah, I agree. You never know how you're going to react until it happens.
But
whether
whenever
you have
my
a gun or not.
fight or flight kicks in, I tend to be more fight than flight. As I've, just living life, I've just noticed that.
Yeah.
If I had a gun in that situation, I don't know. I wouldn't trust myself personally.
Yeah, I would like to think that I would try.
Would I
But-
take a course to learn how to? If I wanted to have a concealed weapon and that was something I thought could happen, then I might think about taking a course somehow to get me more able to react correctly during a high pressure situation. Until I have that, I don't think I'd want a concealed weapon.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be part of a concealed carry.
It's not.
Kind of like how EMTs have to get fucking trained. Like anyone who has CPR, they have to get trained for it. Like if you want a concealed carry, you have to be trained.
Yeah, and I could see that. The nice thing is we live in an open carry state.
Yeah.
So we don't have to conceal it. We can just walk
true.
around with a fucking 44 mag strapped to the hip.
Yeah, we can do that.
We could be like a walking armory.
but
You
then
can go into you can go to
can.
UVU with that shit. Like
can you on a
yeah,
private property?
You can.
Okay,
It's a state
but
college.
Another thing, though, that just happened is
Hell yeah.
shortly after one of the shootings, this other individual kitted out with a vest, an AR-15, and a pistol, walked into a Walmart, and people panicked. But he was just trying to make a statement that he could walk in with his weapons because it was legal. But he ended up still, I don't remember how it finally turned out, if he was just fined or if he was... something else major happened to him, but people panicked when he came in all decked out.
Right. And it's I mean,
And it was, causing a public disturbance.
I feel like
and-
I would be a little freaked out by that too, because
Yeah.
it's like, why are you armored in here with a gun? Like,
Exactly.
that.
So-
Those people are retarded.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well carry a sign saying what the point is. Otherwise, people are going to misconstrue what you're doing.
Of course, that kind of goes beyond the point. That makes the point null if you have to tell them. 'Cause the
Yeah.
whole point is you shouldn't be concerned. But like, if you're fully decked out, I would be a little more concerned.
Well, I mean, yeah, like it's not
'Cause
like
the idea of like carrying a gun around with you isn't that crazy to me, because I live in a state where we do that and we have.
I just
very
feel
little gun
ridiculous doing
violence.
that. Like carrying a gun around on my hip. I just feel stupid.
I would have to have like, spurs on and like fucking big old cowboy belt.
get the fucking pistols or the revolvers and
Yeah,
everything.
I need a can of tobacco. Like I'd have to go all the way, or else it would seem weird.
You have to get one of those fucking like jars to spit into.
Yeah.
It's that fucking specific sound.
Yeah. Ding. Yeah. I don't know. It's a tough one though. I mean, and I know we've strayed quite a ways. And I don't have the answers though. I don't really have the answers.
Would the
All I know
jug
is that
make that ting sound off
No.
of tobacco only, or is it because there's a tooth mixed in there?
I don't know.
The question is, was it his tooth?
I mean, it has to be somebody's tooth. Because I don't think the tobacco would make that ting sound, but it always does.
It must be the tobacco then. You can't assume that every time he spits he loses a tooth. I mean,
Well, I mean, if it's chewing, it's going to be highly likely.
is it like, do you lose teeth when you chew?
No, you just
Chewing
get mouth
tobacco,
cancer.
yes.
Mostly you get gum cancer.
I've seen quite a few people walk in the stores with no teeth chewing tobacco.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Or was it the meth?
yeah, was it the meth or the cha?
I don't know. I don't know about no meth, but I do know about the chew. And
Yeah.
everyone who chews, unless they're like 19, is missing teeth.
Sometimes they miss their jaws because you have to remove it because the filth has gotten so deep.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a complicated subject.
Yeah, it really is, and like
And it's hard to say
I don't have all the answers. I don't.
how
And I
you
don't think
really
anyone
feel
does.
one way or the other just because, I don't know. But that's why, I don't know. If you feel strongly one way or the other, it is your right to push that idea forward and to do what steps you think are necessary to, to contact your local government, to
Yeah, and I mean,
get people in office who feel the same way you do.
and I mean, the thing is like, if we have these laws and we've accepted the fact that these laws should exist, they should go to the gun shows. They should go to all these other places. If we're willing to accept that background checks and this and that and the other makes enough of a difference to actually help, then yeah, there shouldn't be loopholes. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I agree that those, necessarily help, but if we're going to have those rules, they should be rules across the board. There shouldn't be any way to get around it, So I mean, there's that. That's a pretty progressive idea. You could call it progress. If it's really just we're doing something. At least we're doing something about it. I fucking hate that. It's like
the fucking,
but it's the wrong thing, so it's worse than nothing.
Like the pollution thing. So like everybody's like stop using plastic straws, even though plastic straws are like less than like 0.1% of the.
It's like, but at least I'm doing something, and it's like, but it's fucking almost nothing.
I think the idea is just do their best to get rid of single-use plastics.
Yeah. I get that.
I mean, yeah,
but then they just say like, hey, don't buy water bottles.
Yeah.
That's a single-use plastic. That's
Don't
large.
buy water bottles as you're drinking out of one on stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was funny. That was great. The KupoCon.
Well, those freaking like Sobe used to have all their stuff in like glass bottles, and they switched to plastic like a few years ago.
Yeah,
Cheaper.
So
it is cheaper, but glass doesn't pollute. Glass is a natural. Well, I mean, sand. If you crush it small enough, it's sand again.
I think they somewhere in Colorado, just recently read it. Someone was taking micro samples of.
why are you flipping me off?
Am I? Someone was taking micro samples of just runoff water from rainwater collecting in the Rocky Mountains, and in most of their samples they found microplastics that were just raining. Microplastic got in the air and came down in rain, so plastics everywhere now.
Nice.
And it's not just plastic products. It's just it's everywhere. Yeah, so long subject, probably a divisive one. But
Yeah. But again, like we don't really know the answer to it. Like we don't know what is where.
I mean, there's two extremes you can go with it. No one gets gun or gets any form of weapon ever, or everyone gets any weapon they want.
Yeah, and I think neither of those.
What is the best outcome?
I mean, both of those have worked terribly. So neither. That's the whole point of what we are here. We're not everything else. We're not everywhere else. Because one side is anarchy and the other side is fascism. And neither of those are great. Well, I guess it's not necessarily fascist. It's just you're completely unarmed, and it's to a point where you have no ability to defend yourself whatsoever.
Right.
That's not a great way to do it because
freaking UK is starting to take away knives now too.
Well, the UK is a fucking joke
because they have like a shitload of knife crime.
Yeah, that's because they don't have legal guns because now people use knives. The UK, you also could be prosecuted for things you say online, for Twitter and stuff like that. People are jailed for things they've said. So the UK is becoming a fucking joke. And I love it when people point to these other countries like, well, this country does this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, but the whole point of America is that we're not those countries.
Because we're free.
Because we're better. And we got back-to-back World War Championship belts to show that shit.
I want that shirt.
Yeah, so suck it.
It's like the greatest shirt I've ever seen.
Yeah, back-to-back World War champs.
Another example is, I think Australia, to where they got rid of most guns, but if you hunt and do other things like that, you can't have a license to own a firearm.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that the gun debate isn't nearly as important to me as other debates. Like, it's big. Craig just died a little.
I did.
But it's not the most important thing to me that's being compromised.
I feel like, again, guns or gun violence is a symptom of a larger issue.
You have a larger
and it's
problem.
more complicated and probably more expensive to tackle that true issue than it is to tackle guns.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's such an easy target.
Yeah.
It's the video games, clearly.
Yeah.
So
the video games.
Yeah.
And then see, one thing I find is really funny about another tangent about them blaming video games, against all the evidence is, of course, it's, Hillary Clinton, the Democrats right afterwards who rail on the Republicans.
Yeah, you're like,
look at them
how dumb
blaming
could
video
you be?
games. And it's like,
like,
you guys, in the 90s when video game violence was a big thing again, who was, denouncing video games as evil then? It's
Well,
just
not that long ago, freaking California tried to remove all violent video games just from California or some shit. I can't remember exactly what they were trying to do, but they were trying to pass a law that said you can't have violent video games in California.
Yeah, you got to put your fucking your Mortal Kombat 11 in with your Mein Kampf copy, and how much of a pain in the ass is that? You know,
of course, of course, your necessary Mein Kampf.
Yeah,
copy
naturally.
It's just
who doesn't have a copy of Mein Kampf in the floorboards? No one, right? So now you're gonna have to open up another floorboard to stash all your fucking games. Soon they'll come for the porn.
Of course there's no correlation, but just because a politician's now on your side doesn't mean he is really on your side.
Yeah, they don't actually care. They
care.
just care what the other people think, and they want to do the opposite of that.
Yeah.
That's why it's impossible to get anything done in this country.
It's the red versus blue mentality.
Yeah, it's the football team. And whichever one has the crazy Kool-Aid.
I don't know who they are or what they look like, but I know that they stand for everything we don't stand for.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a tough one, though. I agree. There's so many answers to it. And
I know.
I would like to know more. But it's hard because anything you find online.
You can just compare it to examples of what other countries have done, and compare those results to ours.
Right. I feel like it's irresponsible to look at gun deaths.
In those
countries.
I was going to say that comparing, per 100,000 people, gun deaths in that community versus other countries who don't have access to guns, what you should be doing is comparing the amount of violent deaths per that many people in each country. It's just
right. And since the 50s,
you got a better tool for it. You're going to use a better tool.
Right,
for it.
right. And it makes sense. And that's the argument. The biggest argument I have.
Cut to Britain, people just smashing each other with bricks. What are you going to do? Ban bricks?
Fucking sledgehammers.
Probably. Those guys are retarded. Governmentally, anyway. I don't know about the people. And it's hard because they're supposed to represent the people, but then they don't. Congress will have a 3% approval rating, and they'll all get reelected, and it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? God!
There was
at least he's not a Democrat. I'll vote for him again, even though I hate that slimy fuck. Fuck! God, there's no options. It's fucking... Ooh. God!
And again, this is going to diverge more into just politics in general in America.
Yeah.
That people always my democracy and stuff like that. Well, people forget that America is a republic of states.
We're not a democracy.
We are a republic.
This isn't a democracy.
Of what was supposed to be more or less individually operating states that work together for a federal government.
For a greater good,
it just feels like over time we have become more and more of a federal government, that where the federal government has more power to make these decisions that every state has to adhere to. But remember, each individual state should have its own ability to make rules for its own people.
Yeah.
And everybody tends to ignore that. And states
some states like Colorado have just come out and said, "Well, fuck it, we're going to make weed legal because it's our state and this is what we think."
And it's it's unconstitutional for them to have made marijuana federally illegal. That is not a federal issue.
Well,
so that's why Colorado said, "Fuck you! This is our right to make it legal."
But it happens. It happens bit by bit where the states vote to give the federal government more power over time to make those decisions.
It's being pushed. A little bit more each time.
But then federal government has the federal funding they can hold over states' heads, saying, "Hey, you're going to get less funding if you don't do what we think."
Yeah, but they don't have any money anyway, so they're giving us monopoly money at this point. You can say federal funding, but then I pull up the USDebtClock.org, and we're over $30 trillion in the hole. It's like, you can't give me something that you don't have, and it's not that they don't have it right now. Payday's a week away. It's they don't have it for a while. They haven't had it for years. So, fuck that. Fuck the, federal funding. It's no fucking money. Give me a break. Fucking assholes. I agree, though. They do hold that over. And they have before.
Well, they do, of course.
With the California fires, that's one thing that fucking moron Trump did. He was like, oh, well, maybe if you guys, cleaned out your underbrush, it wouldn't be burning. And it's like, well, those fires are supposed to happen, actually. And that's why forests catch on fire. It replenishes the forest. It's like a natural thing, right? But that wasn't what caused the one. So that's a non-issue, and he threatened to pull funding from California if they couldn't get that shit under control. And so they do hold leverage over the states, and that is a big deal.
Yep.
But yeah, just remember that. That's fuck those guys.
Yeah, just so if you feel like you want to make a difference, then figure out how to make a difference in your area, because you have to make a difference in your local elections in order to make a difference on the larger scale.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's kind of the idea, like just better yourself, better
and that's
your
how it was
surroundings.
designed. It was, you elect officials who elect other officials who then control the country. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I've been listening to a dude lately, and that's his big thing, is like fix yourself up, fix your family up, and then try to fix your community and go beyond. And I think that's a really good idea. And that's where you start small, but you start impactful. You start saying, I can do this better, and then you start helping your area around you do better, and then you can move on to those other things. But if you can't take care of yourself or your problems, how are you supposed to take care of the world's, right? I feel like if everybody does that, I think it makes it stronger, But yeah, there's stuff you can do for sure. Just vote too. There's no reason why most people don't vote. It's fucking ridiculous. And don't give me that like voter repression horse shit, because I live in Utah. It's the most red state ever, and there's like a million ways to vote in the presidential elections and the 4-year elections. Like it's so easy to vote.
A million ways, as in showing up to your local, voting center to fill out a paper ballot.
Yeah, I show up there, but they're open for like 14 hours, so there's no reason to not fucking do
I
it.
think they should make voting day a holiday.
Yeah, I guess. I suppose so. It would be a big deal.
I would say they should make voting mandatory, but your right to vote is also, it's your right to vote.
I don't
or
think
not
they
to
should
vote.
make it mandatory.
Yeah, it's your right to vote.
Because
or
then
not
you
to.
have like someone who's like, well, I don't like the Republicans, so they just do a straight Democratic ballot without doing any investigation, which is your responsibility. And when I hear somebody say that they're a big fan of this blah, 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 and I ask them, oh, well, did you watch the Democratic debates? They're like, I don't watch the debates. And I'm like, well, then shut up! I wanted to talk about the debates. Like, don't say that you're a Democrat and you didn't watch the Democratic debate. Like, why would you not watch that? This is your deal. This is you.
It's because they don't.
I want to talk about how stupid it was when he opened up with that statement. Like, but I can't now. I can't talk to you because you didn't watch it. And so it's dumb. You have a responsibility, and I agree with Cameron. That's how you stop it. That's how you get it going. You vote. You investigate these people, and you cast your lot accordingly, right? And I feel like we have a duty to ourselves and our fellow citizens to look into these people and vote accordingly.
Yep.
I really do. And on the smallest level, it kind of matters the most. So your community, your little, town, like Provo City Council, that matters the most to me.
Yeah.
That should be my main focus. And it's kind of not anymore. It's more about like every 4 years voting for president, right?
But now the real important question is it ridiculous to own a tank?
No.
It's a little ridiculous, but I kind of want a tank. So, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if you can afford a tank, I say fucking go for it, man.
Yeah, just get some property.
Like, there's no way any normal
But remember-
person can afford a tank, and rich people aren't going to fucking buy a tank.
But remember,
they don't have a
if
use
they
for
if
it.
they bought tanks, they wouldn't be rich.
I mean, if
Yeah,
they're rich
exactly.
enough, they already have their own military.
Yeah,
so.
it's like they don't need a tank. They have people with tanks. They
But remember-
will attack
So
on
I
command.
say to you, old man in Texas, if you can afford a
Arizona.
fucking tank, or Arizona, then I
And
say fucking
what-
go for
What
it.
better place to have
Do
a
what
tank?
you want with a tank and the
you
fucking
imagine how-
$1,000 rounds that you have to buy for it.
Remember, in America, you can't have a tank as a private citizen that can actually shoot around. I think there is a
what's the
limit to the
point?
largest gun that an American citizen can own. It's like a small artillery, but there is a size limit to what they can have.
So what? We can have like fucking mortars. We can have a mortar.
I don't think it'd be too difficult to actually make your own makeshift mortars.
Not
anywhere.
really. No. Yeah. It would actually kind of be easy.
Largest weapon. America.
I say if you live somewhere like Texas or Arizona where there's a lot of open space, yeah, get a tank.
Can you imagine
man.
how hot it'd be inside that tank?
It'd probably
Dude,
be
it'd
molten.
ridiculous. Yeah, you'd have to have like his own AC unit.
Yeah, but like, yeah, fuck it, get a tank. Get some fake tanks that you can target practice with. Like, I would
round up your buddies, have tank wars.
I mean, can you imagine like any sort of like if we ever got like attacked or something, and like it's just how much easier it would be to defend yourself with a tank, like. And this guy's going to have his tank, and he's going to be proficient at the tank, right? Because he's had the tank for years, because they said, yeah, if you could buy the tank, you can get the tank. So he got the tank. He's going to be a tank master. And we're going to go to Arizona for shelter, and it's going to be him and his tank. And he's going to be holding off the horde of undead, of Koreans, of whatever the fuck attacks us, China. He's gonna have his tank.
Oh man, could you imagine the driver's license you need to get to have a fucking to be able to drive a tank?
Yeah, it's like a class like
class tank,
class T. Yeah, because there's like D, C. I don't know if there's a B, but I know there's A class. It's like you got to get like triple S class to have your tank.
Drive every vehicle, fly any plane,
yeah,
any
yeah,
helicopter.
It's like trying to get the missions in Grand Theft Auto done.
It's like the pass of all passes, just for like every vehicle.
Yeah, there's to go like to get your own mortar. So there is no regulation on muzzle loading cannons and stuff like that. So technically,
so we could own a fucking cannon.
Yeah, but so technically a mortar's just fine.
Nice. All right, so yeah, just mold your own cannon barrels and get some cannons.
I would say don't worry about a tank. I would go light armored vehicle.
But then you can
honestly.
buy something basically artillery as long as you pay the tax for it.
Yeah.
But it's finding something like that for sale. But
Man,
yeah.
demolition derbies would be a lot more interesting with fucking tanks.
Yeah, it would just be flattening
Oh,
everything.
man, could you imagine if like they had demolition derby with fucking dudes manning a tank or like a fucking cannon on the top of like every vehicle?
You know what I want to see is actual firearms on those fighting robots.
Oh yeah, that'd be fucking sweet.
So you have to like make a gun basically, and you can use that to blow up the other dude. The match starts, and you just shoot a rocket propelled grenade. It just fucking blows the thing up. Fatality.
Oh man.
But
Those
yeah.
should be televised more.
Yeah.
Why aren't they televised
The fighting
more?
robots?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why isn't that shit like
I
as
don't know.
big as like
There's-
fucking the fight?
There was
between,
probably-
like, random dudes.
The people that made Digimon probably told everyone that it was like immoral because these creatures had a sentience and they weren't just lines of code and mechs.
And some of them weren't just like fucking floating gears.
Exactly, they were more than that, and so now we've made it illegal. Like, I want to get the MOBA ants, man. I want to get like the ant colony that's like League of Legends, you know. And then like I could even set it up, dude. I could set it up as like you could go get buffs too. Like you can go kill Baron. You can go kill the Baron, and like everyone will get a status buff. You know, like it's there's a huge clump of like sugar mixed with cocaine in the middle of the map off to the side. So like any ant that goes and gets that is like a fucking super ant.
Oh my
and just
God.
like starts rampaging on the other ants because he's got the buff. You know.
It would give the buff to everybody. Remember?
Yeah, so everyone would have to give the buff. So once that happens, you have to like pick up the coke sugar and put it in the beginning, and then everyone gets a little cocaine and sugar, and they're just like.
So looking more into the tank law, if you're importing a foreign tank, then they won't let it fire. But if I think it's legal to actually source a fully operating tank here in America.
So there you go. Get a tank.
You can buy a tank.
It's not about whether you should or shouldn't. It's about whether you can.
Fully operational main battle tank with 120 millimeter bore.
Look, like I've said before, America is not the land of need. America's the land of want. We got what we need. Now there's room for want. And if you want a tank, baby, get that fucking
buy
tank.
that tank.
You buy that tank. You own that tank. You maintain that tank, and
You would have
are a
to
fucking
register
tank owner.
the cannon on it as an NFA weapon. So it's probably super fucking expensive to just after buying it to then own it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's like the point.
Well,
Like,
just take the tank. Just
if
take
you,
the.
as a normal citizen, want to own a fucking
And then-
tank, I say go for it.
And then you have to
can't.
get your local law enforcement to sign off on it as well.
Well, he's in Arizona. If he's white, he's fine. If not, he's probably.
I have a dream that black people and other races can buy tanks as well.
Well, I'm just
Can
saying.
you imagine gang wars fought in tanks?
Oh, that'd be awesome, dude.
Dude, that would be way more interesting. I bet 50 Cent Blood in the Sand would be way more interesting if we
dude,
could
I
drive
don't know why
tanks.
you feel like that's not going to be an amazing game. I think I'm going to be. I think it's a sleeper.
I feel like that game's going to make me racist.
Oh my god. Yeah, so get the tank. Tell him to get the tank, and you know what? Support his tank purchase. Go out and be like, hey, I've been looking in, and I think the M1 Abrams is, it's the best bet because you have to buy it.
It depends on what is being
it's American.
sold. And you're probably not going to get. You're probably not going to
mileage.
get. You most likely won't get brand new top of line machinery from the U.S. military surplus store. So
yeah, you're going to have to take him to more possibly a seedier buyer. But do your research, help this old guy out, and then drive his fucking tank. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
the diesel fuel must be just.
Oh god, yeah, that's fuck. Running it's going to be horrible. I can't imagine it gets more than 3 miles to the gallon. I just can't.
It's probably got a massive fuel tank.
Yeah, oh yeah. Just help him out.
Just filling it up would be the big pain in the ass.
Make sure he doesn't settle. You got to check out multiple buyers.
Yeah, you're probably
Sellers.
also going to want to let him know he's going to have to live in there because he can't keep his house.
Yeah. You got to
not for the price that he's going to have to buy.
He's going to have
to
to He's going to have to sell it off. And now's a good time. I feel like the housing market is very bloated, and the tank market. Something tells me it's not super demanding.
It's probably pretty good right now.
So sell your house, get the tank, help the guy help him make a wise tank purchase, and then help him drive the tank. You can man the gun. It takes multiple people to run a tank.
Yeah.
I learned that in Call of Duty Big Red 1. I hate the tank missions in that fucking game, but I learned it.
Big Red 1.
Big Red 1. Yeah, PS2. Awful. Yeah, so there you go, guys. Hopefully you're still here and haven't raged, but yeah, lots of interesting issues. One of the things I want to do for a podcast in the future is just learning about these things and talking to experts and really coming to an informed, opinion on gun violence, for example, or something like that, or some semblance of an informed opinion.
I'm just browsing tanks right now, actually.
Yeah, Cameron's going to buy.
Price upon request. There's a Leopard 1A5 main battle tank. That's pretty sweet.
If they don't list the price, it's too expensive. That's always the rule.
No, if you have to ask,
you can't afford it. Yep.
That's what they'll tell you. Hey, how much? You can't afford it. So are you not selling it? And it doesn't matter. You can't afford it. It's what? You had to ask the price. All right, fine, $1 million. And you're all right, deal. And you're wait, what's it worth?
We would have done it for $5.
Yeah, I would have done it for $500,000. And you're fuck! Why did you tell me that? Well, because if you had to ask, it's too much. What?
You got money to blow, asshole?
Yeah. All right, so, I guess we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you give us your questions. 385-204-3921. We'll see just how far we can put our foot in our mouth. But until then, guys, we'll see you then.
Mankind has always been poised.
Give up on yourselves and give up on the world.
Every puzzle has an answer. You dumbass. Kick logic out and do the impossible. Remember that.
I'm glad I met you guys. You made me pick up on things I probably would have just gone on ignoring.
Don't believe in yourself. Believe